Hey, real fast, before this podcast begins, by the way, I'm your host, Sensei Pong. So, listening over to this podcast while editing and the like, I thought to myself, how can I make this podcast go from mediocre to better? Maybe 4 stars out of 5. iTunes rules tells me that I can't tell you to give me 5-star ratings, but I won't stop you if you do. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Anyways, hopefully if I'm able to, I may couple this podcast with a Reddit thread solely for the use of this podcast, where you as the listener can discuss and ask me questions about the games of the month. If I can get this going, and hopefully by the time you're listening to this you can, post things about games that are featured on this podcast, at which point I can have a segment or segments where I read your discussions and comments and refer to them, giving me more things to talk about, riff off of, and what have ya. Hopefully sooner than later I can also get special guests on the podcast, but at this point there's still no promises. Anywho, since I messed up the tail end of this podcast with some confusion about game titles, I blame it on sleep deprivation. This episode is featuring Wonder Boy the Dragon's Trap on Switch and a million other platforms, Lumines on PSP, Kirby's Dreamland on Game Boy and Virtual Console, and then to wrap things up at the tail end, Story of Seasons Trio of Towns on 3DS. The next episode is in about 2 weeks' time, will be Kamiko on Switch, Shining Force, a sort of Hajya on Game Gear and Virtual Console, Mega Man 2 on Game Boy and Virtual Console, and Rune Factory on DS. Anywho, that's about it. Like, subscribe, throw me a review, comment, follow me on the social networks, and keep a lookout for that official Pongcast Reddit thread where we can discuss these things on a more personal level than just me talking to myself like a madman. With that, on with the Pongcast. And welcome to the Pongcast. I'm your host, Sensei Pong. So, as if you listened to my update 2 weeks ago, was it? Yeah, it was about 2 weeks ago. I've changed the format of this podcast to become a video game book club of sorts. So, this is now called the Pongcast Video Game Book Club. So, yeah, that's a thing. And like I said, I will be covering a little bit of news in the beginning, but only because there's so much news going on right now because of E3. I'm actually planning on doing a mini pod after E3 is all said and done. So expect something probably from me. I'm probably concentrating on the things I know the best, which would be handhelds, which would be like 3DS, the Switch, and PS Vita, if anything like really notable comes out on the Vita. Or if there's anything like maybe PC games or PS4 or Xbox One games, which I would probably know, or, I think would be like cool things to be looking forward to. Probably just give you my best picks of like most anticipated games of E3 2017, blah, 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 that sort of thing. The sort of thing every YouTube gamer does, ever covers any sort of news. Okay, sorry. Technical difficulties. Wow, okay, this is off to a good start. But that's fine. So yeah, I'm not going to go into too much news for now, but there is one small thing that caught my attention, and if you're deeply familiar with any of my work on YouTube or my personal opinions, I really don't expect you to know. Even if you're like a long time subscriber to the channel, you wouldn't know necessarily. It's not. This is information that is kind of a need to know basis because it's an unpopular opinion of mine. And when I say unpopular opinion, I mean like really unpopular opinion. So, well, let's just get to the point. Y'all know Bubsy? Yeah, y'all know Bubsy, the gaming mascot from the 90s. That's, was kind of a Sonic ripoff that people critique as being like the worst gaming mascot of all time, even though there's far worse out there. And anybody that knows their retro games and knows their Genesis, there's worse out there. There really are. I'm awesome. Name that game if you know it. That game was terrible. That game was janky. You think Bubsy is hard to control. Oh, that game I referenced that I'm not going to mention. I'm going to test your knowledge here. I'm awesome. That sort of thing. If you know what game I'm talking about, kudos to you. You know your retro stuff. Oh, that game was terrible. Well, not even so much in retro stuff. You know your Genesis, or Mega Drive for the people overseas. There are far worse things than Bubsy in life. Believe me, if you know your retro games. Oh, anywho. So, what's my unpopular opinion about Bubsy? Obviously, I like the Bubsy series. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. Bubsy 3D is absolute garbage. There's no way I can defend that game. There's absolutely no way. That game is just a hot pile of family-friendly matter that is brown. Probably stinks. You probably want to wash your hands if you touch it. That sort of game. But anywho, maybe we'll sanitize it. Get your Purell going, or just like boil yourself in water because there's no coming back from that. But usually when people think the Bubsy games, they think of the big three: Bubsy 1, Bubsy 2. They came out on Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo, and then you have Bubsy 3D, which came out on the PlayStation. The one game that's often forgotten is Bubsy Fractured Furry Tales, and honestly, I like that one. That one is one of my favorites. It has its slew of problems that a lot of the Bubsy games have, but it's still fun. I always found the Bubsy games fun. Yes, I always found him really annoying. I'm not gonna lie, he is pretty annoying, but it's almost like it's so bad it's good. That's why I enjoy it, because they're fun, and I like tough platformers. I always have. So I don't know. I've always enjoyed that sort of thing. I know this is a terrible thing to say because so many people hold this game so deeply to their heart, but it's like Super Meat Boy. Not everyone's gonna like it. Some people are gonna absolutely hate that game because it's, of course, the tight controls of Super Meat Boy compared to the floaty controls of Bubsy. You have your differences. Bubsy slides around, and Super Meat Boy, it's fine tuned. You can, as long as you're like really on your game, you can jump around and avoid instant death. But that's the thing. Instant death. Most people don't enjoy that sort of thing. So of course most people aren't going to enjoy Bubsy who can't take, you touch something that you think, oh, okay, well, he should be fine. No, he's not. But anyways, I always thought the Bubsy games were fun. I never thought they were good. But I never thought they were bad. That's the thing. I always thought they were fun. And when I finally got into like collecting games, it was maybe about like 18 years ago. And I was like, okay, well, I've been wanting to play the Bubsy games for a while because I've heard bad things from them. And believe me, a lot of people, a lot of younger kids these days think to themselves, well, Bubsy, Bubsy's hit meme territory since the JonTron. But believe me, Bubsy has been just all around the worst, considered one of the worst games of all time for years now. And there's a good reason for that. I never thought it was as bad as people said because I've experienced worse. I've looked into the depths of the abyss and stared into the eyes of unspeakable Lovecraftian horrors. I'm awesome. Oh man, I wish I wasn't the only person that knew that game. Oh, I really wish I wasn't the only one. Anyways, what's my point? Bubsy's back in a game called Bubsy: The Woolies Strike Back. And if you don't know the Bubsy series, I don't blame you because it's kind of obscure amongst the retro, only popular amongst the retro players. But the Woolies are these aliens that I believe the storyline was that Bubsy has to take back all the balls of yarn because he's a bobcat and he likes playing with yarn because he's a cat. Whatever. The Woolies are back. You have to fight aliens. You're a bobcat. You can kind of glide. He's real derpy looking, but it's got that 90s edge. No, actually, not even. Sonic has that 90s edge, that almost cringy 90s edge, but Bubsy has no edge to him. He's just a ball of cringy cheese. But that's why I love him, because it's so stupid. But I still find joy out of his games. Now, here's the thing, and a lot of people, I believe Alpha Omega Sin is on the bench with this. And I was quite surprised because he's one of those Bubsy's a terrible game kind of people. Not saying I have anything wrong with Alpha Omega Sin. I'm not. I respect the guy. He's got some great points, and he's a good YouTuber for in the retro scene and all that kind of stuff. But maybe I'm in the minority here. But I've always played the Bubsy games and knew there was a better game in there because it's by Accolade. It's by Atari. I knew Atari was on the way out, so I didn't expect much. Maybe that's why I don't think the Bubsy games were all that bad, because I never expected much. It was by Accolade, which, if you don't know your developers, Accolade is the remnants of what Atari was back in the 80s. They split up after the company went bankrupt, all sorts of different junk. Somehow, I'm not sure if it's actually Accolade, but because Accolade, I want to say, stopped publishing back in the year 2000. In the year 2000... Year 2000. But they stopped publishing since then. That's 17 years ago, mind you. I thought they went out of business. Somehow they've crawled out of the grave and are now some sort of lich publisher of a game thing on stuff. Producing games again? Really? Are you serial? I thought they went out of business. Shows how much I know about Accolade. Maybe Bubsy was the only thing they didn't sell off to Infogrames. Oh. I feel like it's such an obscure publisher and developer to be like hard-nosed, like, oh man, I dislike those guys. But, I've never liked Infogrames. The more I learned about them, I was like, oh, the Infogrames! You're ruining Atari's name. You don't have to know. People have beefs with other developers. Other game commentators have beefs with other game developers and publishers for good reasons. But my big beefs goes towards the Infogrames for ruining Atari. They're my scumbag developer of choice. So. Here's the thing. Alpha Omega Sin is on the fence with Bubsy, the Woolly Strike Back, because he's watching the trailer and he's thinking to himself, this actually doesn't look that bad. So his question was, could they make a good platformer game out of a notoriously bad series? My answer is yes. 2D platformers have been overdone constantly for the past 5 years. It shouldn't be that hard to make a decent 2D platformer. And as long as it's pretty decent, I think I'd probably enjoy it quite a bit and maybe even give it a rating of maybe 7 out of 10. That's my prediction of how I'm going to feel about this game. Maybe even more if it's actually done really well, but I don't know. It's Accolade. But here's the thing. The Accolade's not developing it, thank God. It's this small indie developer from Germany, I believe, called Black Forest Games. It makes sense that they're from Germany, called Black Forest Games, but that's not the point. They're popular for rebooting the Gianna Sisters series, which is kind of a cult classic retro game series, famous for its co-op, I believe. I don't know too much about the Gianna Sisters games and all that, but those games actually got pretty favorable review scores. I want to say the newest one is hovering around 7 to 7.5 out of 10 usually. Metacritic score 70%, 75%, and then the other one they created was closer to 80%. So that's actually not bad for what it is. It's you don't expect a whole lot out of a new indie team usually. So 80%, 70%, that's pretty good for an obscure title. So hopefully Bubsy is going to be at least 70% on Metacritic, maybe 80%. If he hits 80%, oh boy, he's going to be the highest rated Bubsy game of all time. But what was my point? Ever since I got into collecting games, this was years ago, 15, 17, maybe 20 years ago. Before my collection disappeared. But that's a story for another time. Not legally allowed to loll about it. But back then, I was thinking to myself, there's a good game in here. If a good developer picks this up, and at the time I was thinking maybe Sega, maybe Konami. This is, mind you, when I say maybe Konami, this is like 15, 17 years ago. Konami is awesome. Konami was awesome then. Not Konami now, Konami then. And I'm thinking to myself, if a developer like that, maybe Nintendo even picks up Bubsy, even though they wouldn't, they can make us a very solid platformer game. Maybe Capcom. This would be awesome. And I've been hoping for like 17, at least 17 or 15 years for a new Bubsy game to come out. I've been waiting so long because I actually enjoyed Fractured Furry Tales on the Jaguar. I actually enjoyed, Bubsy 1. Bubsy 2, it's on the lower end of things, but oh man, I've been waiting for so freaking long to the point where this Bubsy game is my most anticipated game of 2017 quite easily. Now don't shut off the podcast. Don't shut off the podcast. My credibility isn't gone here. Because if it is a solid game, I'll enjoy it, and maybe I'm hoping for mediocre at best, maybe slightly above average. I'm not expecting any like masterpiece or anything, but I'm expecting something fun. That's what I would wish for. Yeah, that was a big ramble soup. Had some technical difficulties there, so my train of thought wasn't like the most clearest thing in the world, but there's my thoughts. That's the big news story of the day. Bubsy's back. Hell yeah. Hell yeah, Batman. Hell yeah. Moving on quickly to games that I've been playing recently outside of the book club. As you know, I've got a Switch, so Puyo Puyo Tetris. I was talking huge about that like earlier on. I was like, oh my gosh, most anticipated. If you go back to episode 1 of the Pongcast, one of my most anticipated games was Puyo Puyo Tetris because I love puzzle games. And, it's a bias. It's my gaming vice. Like, I play a bunch of different types of games. I play RPGs, I play strategy games, I play big, games, I play shooters, FPS games, shmups, everything. But when I want to, like, just relax, or if I just want to, like, pick up something and play it for maybe, like, 10, 15 minutes, it tends to be a puzzle game. And Puyo Puyo Tetris looked awesome back then. I was like, oh my gosh, this is my most anticipated game of the year. So how was it? How was it, you might ask? What do I think of it? Oh, it's just as awesome as I thought. Sega has done so beautifully with this game. And thank goodness that the Tetris company had the foresight to be like, well, Sega's not going to mess this one up. Here you go, because I believe his name is Alexei Pajitnov. I'm pronouncing that wrong, so I apologize to any of my Russian listeners here. I'm not Russian. The Tetris company doesn't create Tetris games. They license it and license out the name Tetris so other developers can make it. And I was really hoping for a situation that wasn't Tetris Ultimate. So, I was like, man, I really just want a solid Tetris game. How hard is that going to be? Luckily, Sega has the chops to make a decent puzzle game. And the splicing creates such a new feel and like frantic like feeling when you're playing, because first time I played Switch or Switch mode, which was you have it's called swap mode. You're playing against someone else, and you've got it spins a little spinner, like 1 out of 2 chance. Either you start with Tetris or you start with Puyo Puyo, and then after like 30 seconds, it switches. There's 2 boards going on at the same time, so you're playing 2 different boards. It switches to the other style. So like, let's say you start with Tetris. After 30 seconds, it switches to the second board, and that game is put on pause. The first game is put on pause, and now you're playing Puyo Puyo for 30 seconds. After that, it switches back and constantly goes back and forth. And that was throwing my mind for a loop, because I haven't really seriously played Puyo Puyo in a very long time. And I was just like, oh, my brain is in Tetris mode. Puyo Puyo is a drastically different game. And then comes comes Fusion mode, which you end up having both Tetronimos and Puyos dropping down at the same time. Going back and forth and sometimes switching as you're trying to like figure out where to put your piece. Oh boy, that is the best mode ever because it is the most like brain-numbingly fun arcade puzzler I've come across in a very long time. And I haven't beaten I haven't had a lot of time to play, mind you. I haven't beaten the single player campaign yet because I've been messing around with different modes, all that, and two-player games and whatever, what have you. But from what it looks like now, my prediction of a 9 out of 10, maybe 10 out of 10, seems to be right because I'm leaning towards that 9 out of 10 score for right now on Puyo Puyo Tetris. So if you own a PS4, I believe it's on Steam, maybe a Switch, an Xbox One. Is it on 3DS? I don't remember. Is it on Vita? Nobody knows. But it's on a bunch of different consoles and systems and what have you. So if you like puzzle games, if you like competitive puzzle games, if you like arcade games, like quote-unquote arcade-style games, it is a solid title. What else have I been playing? Honestly, I haven't had that much time because I'll get into it in a little bit. It's Story of Seasons. Yes, that's on the book club list. But what else have I played? I haven't really had time to sit back down with Zelda Breath of the Wild, but my feelings on it still hasn't changed. I'm still hanging around that 8.5 out of 10. I love it. It's an awesome game, but, I wouldn't say it's absolutely perfect. Minecraft on the Switch. I got that for my kids because they're all obsessed with Minecraft. They're kids, and it's Minecraft, so it's going to be fun. So what do I think of it? Well, the good news is, I've been wanting to do this joke for so long. The good news is, guess what? It's bigger than I messed it up. I almost said StarCraft. It's bigger than Skyrim. Good news, guys. Minecraft is bigger than Skyrim. Yes. Oh, what else did I write down? Code of Princess from the DS shop. Something. I played that a while ago. It's a pretty good. It's not like the deepest game in the world, but it's like a RPG element infused beat 'em up. Very anime with the waifus and stuff. So if you're not into that, you don't necessarily have to look into it. But it's a fun little game from several years ago. Code of Princess for the DS and 3DS. The DS version is the most solid title version from what I've heard. I didn't play the other versions, so. But for a DS game, it's pretty solid. Space Distant, which is a crazy cheap bargain game on Steam, which is basically a Space Invaders clone. And I was really disappointed with this game because maybe I can go into detail about it on a YouTube video, like a retro remake, but I just don't feel like it validates a video because there's just not much going on in the game. It's very bare bones. And I'd be okay with a bare bones Space Invaders clone as long as it played well. And that's my problem with it. It doesn't play well. Like, if you've played Space Invaders, you can only do one shot at a time. And yes, that sounds aggravating, but that forces you to be strategic with your shots. Something like Galaga, where you can only do like 2 shots at a time. Correct me if I'm wrong. 2 shots at a time also has that similar feel. But with Space Distant, it doesn't matter. You can just hold down the fire button and it just goes pew, 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 pew. So almost like a pseudo rapid fire, but it's really slow. And that just felt like it lost the strategy. It lost the tension that Space Invaders needs. And it just didn't hold my attention. I just felt like, man, this is just a lazy clone. They could have done so much more with this and still kept it simple, if that's what they were going for. What else have I played? I've played a little bit of the Freedom Planet demo. That's really good. If you don't know what Freedom Planet is, it's a fan-made game by an indie developer. It is available on Steam, and it's heavily inspired by Sonic. And even Team Sonic declared, like, dude, Freedom Planet's a good game. So I was like, okay, whatever, I'll go check it out. So I played the demo, and man, that is a really, really solid feeling game. So I might have to pick that up at some point. If you're wondering about my TCGs, I just haven't had time because of Story of Freaking Seasons. So here's the thing. Story of Seasons is a very long-winded game, and for this book club, I was thinking to myself, well, I want to try to 100% the experience as much as I can. I'm not going to 100% the game, of course, because that's a monster of a game to try to do that with. I'm not the completionist. I'm not Gerard Khalil. I don't have 90 to 100 hours a week to play video games. I don't have that kind of time. So I thought to myself, well, you can break up with characters, and little did I know that's actually harder than it sounds if you're starting at like a pink and red level heart. So, oops. Anyways, I'll get to that when we get to that. So let's just carry on and talk about the games of the book club. First up, let's talk about Monster Boy the Dragon's Trap on the Nintendo Switch. It is also available on Steam, PS4, Xbox One, maybe the 3DS, maybe the Vita, I don't remember. But I'm playing it on the Switch. It's a good game. It's a good game. It's a remake from Monster Boy 3 on the Master System. I haven't played that game in a long time, so I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. Luckily, it wasn't like too difficult for me, and what did I think of it? What's the storyline? What's going on? Basically, this Wonder Boy or Monster Boy, depending on what version you're playing, goes in and tries to defeat the dragon at this castle and gets transformed into different monsters. First one you play is a lizard man, and then it moves to the mouse knight, and then it turns to the piranha knight, like the fish knight guy, and then it turns to the lion knight guy, and then you got the bird knight guy, and all sorts of different guys. It's pretty cool. It's a Metroidvania game. I'm not sure if you played it. If you're playing along, you already know all this. Storyline doesn't exactly matter in this game, because it's an old school retro game. And storylines never really mattered for that. You just kind of play the game, carry on your adventure, beat the bad guys. And it was kind of a breath of fresh air for me, honestly, because it was just that simplistic nature of a retro game that I haven't felt in quite a long time. Because you get a lot of retro-inspired games, and they complicate things because they want to add depth, and that's fine. But sometimes you just want like a simple experience that's solid. And this is a discussion for another time. But retro-inspired games that I have beefs with. Because it looks retro, just because it plays a little janky, doesn't mean it's retro. That kind of peeves me off. Some developers really don't know what made retro games awesome. Some developers do, and they improve the formula, and I'm fine with that. But the thing with Monster Boy, they didn't necessarily improve the formula. Nothing's really changed. It feels like a carbon copy of the original. So, because for this, I kind of came back to the original for a little bit, and it's basically playing on hard mode for the new edition. And it was interesting to see this as a remake, because there's almost nothing changed outside of choosing what avatar you want to play as your character. Do you want to be Monster Boy or Monster Girl, or, do you want to play on easy mode, normal mode, or hard mode? And, you have that option. I thought that was really cool, that they didn't really change anything. But that's also the problem with the game that I found, because they didn't change anything, and it's such an early Metroidvania game. It doesn't have the depth of like Symphony of the Night or newer games that are out right now. The first game that popped up in my head that's new is Dead Cells. I haven't played that yet, but I've heard very, very good things if you like Metroidvania games. But games like that, Metroid Fusion, whatever, it doesn't have the depth of those games. It's very bare bones, it's very straightforward. It's like, oh, this is a better piece of armor. Get it at some point when you can. This is a better weapon. Get that at some point when you can. There's a couple differences here and there, like I honestly didn't really change my weapons all that much, but there were a couple moments where I was like, oh, well, this sword is exactly for this situation, so I'm going to use this here. Or, this armor is for this situation, I'm going to use this here. Like the dragon's armor. It's immune to lava. Oh, I'm going towards the volcano. Let's throw that on so if I fall in the lava, I don't get hurt and burned alive. But, that's not a bad thing. That simplicity focuses in on the gameplay. Because at that point, you're not concentrating on, like, oh, my inventory management. Do I need to get this? Do I need to hang on to this? Should I drop this? Should I keep this, that, this and that? That sort of thing. It keeps it so bare bones that it's just you start focusing on the gameplay. And that was fun. I really enjoyed that. One other big problem, because it is an older game, unless you don't know where you're going or what you're supposed to do, the game can actually be beaten relatively quickly. Or if you're familiar with Metroidvania games, you're going to be like, oh, okay, well, I'm stuck here. I should probably look around in that one spot because that makes sense, that sort of thing. Because there's a little bit of backtracking back and forth, that sort of thing. A lot of exploring in the 2D hemisphere, and you're going to be like, okay, let's do that. Let's do that. That's fun. And the secrets aren't really that hard to decipher. The puzzles aren't hard to decipher. So that's really quite the fallbacks of the game. It's simplistic, but it's also its strength, and it's hard. I hope I'm getting this across well enough to say it's both what makes it a solid, awesome game, but maybe not everyone's cup of tea. If you enjoyed games like maybe DuckTales or that was dumb, or older games like that from the early 90s, late 80s, you will have the best time of your life with this game. If you're expecting something like Symphony of the Night or Cave Story or I don't know, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. It's late. I'm very sleep deprived. But like if you're expecting something like that, you're going to have fun with the game, sure, but you're not going to be like, "Oh, this is the most amazing game ever." So, unfortunately, do I think the game is worth a buy? Yeah, it's definitely worth a look if you love Metroidvania games. It's for sure a buy if you love retro games. But because of its simplicity and its relative length, I'm hanging around that 8 to 8.5 out of 10 rating, personally, because I think it's an awesome game, but I can see its shortfalls that not everybody will think it's awesome. So that's why I would think that. So yeah, go check that out. That was a nice little run down memory lane because I haven't played that game in a long time. Haven't really sat down with the Master System in a long time, to be honest. Genesis kind of takes over. There's only very few games on the Master System that I can say, "Oh man, these games are freaking awesome." That sort of thing. So yeah, I thought that was awesome. I thought it was fun. Go check it out. Next game on the book club. Let's talk. Let's keep this real simple and just talk about Lumines on the PSP. Now I haven't played Lumines in years, and now I remember why. Is it a bad game? No, but the only reason why I threw Lumines on the list. I was like, oh well, man, there's 4 games. I don't know how I'm going to be able to deal with for piloting a video game book club. Let's choose something easy. Something that doesn't have that much depth. And Lumines it is. Lumines is a pretty straightforward puzzle game. You drop blocks of 2 different colors on your play field, kind of a rectangular play field, and you create little like squares and rectangles of at least 4x4, blocks of the same color. And a little scrolling thing goes from left to right constantly and clears out those. And with that, there's a little bit of strategy that you can involve and set up cascades and set up little blocks to drop in certain spots. So you clear out one rectangle or square, and then other blocks drop down and then create another square, and then boom, 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 back and forth. And I thought that was awesome. It was fun. And the competitive nature of the game, because you could do 2-player, I didn't really mess around with that. It's fun. It's pretty good. But honestly, the game, Lumines, is pretty simplistic. But I feel like it might have been like one of the earliest minimalist games I can think of that was purposefully going for a minimalist thing. Because, older games like Keeks, if you know that series by Taito, is minimalist, but they weren't doing that to be like, ooh, we're being all artsy with the minimalism here. That's just They couldn't push the they couldn't, that was the boundaries of the technology of the time and the hardware of the time. They couldn't go beyond that. And they're like, okay, well, this is what we have to do. This is a fun idea, so let's do it. And they did. Lumines, though, can be pretty tense, and if you're not familiar with Lumines, it can actually give you quite the wraparound in your head, because it doesn't necessarily play like a game like Puyo Puyo, where you're just matching up like 4 colors, or Tetris, where like you're trying to clear out lines. It's got quite a different feel to it, and even though it may seem pretty shallow at first, the longer you play with it, I've noticed, the deeper it gets. And I really enjoyed that. The music was pretty good. Oh, yeah, about Monster Boy's music, the music was awesome. You can also switch back and forth between the original 8-bit and all that. That was cool. Oh, okay, back to Lumines. The music was pretty good. It was like the kind of the futuristic unta 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 bow wow wow wow. Yes, the unta 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 bow wow wow wow. That sort of music. The kind of thing that you might find in a 2004 rave. That's Lumines in a nutshell. Bow, wow, wow, wow. Throw in the glow sticks. I don't know. There really isn't much to talk about Lumines. It's a solid puzzle game. For the longest time I've been thinking about like making a top 10 puzzle games of all time on my channel. And Lumines always came back to the back of my mind, but I never really sat down with it since like 2007. So I was just like, well, I don't know how well it holds up. I had fun with it back then, but I don't remember it being, better than Dr. Mario, being better than the good versions of Tetris, being better than Puyo Puyo. I was like, well, Puyo Puyo Fever is awesome on the DS. That probably ranks higher than Lumines, but it was nice to come back to it. It didn't really bring up any nostalgia for me, surprisingly. I was quite surprised about that. I thought it would. Monster Boy definitely did. It hit me at my heartstrings. Lumines, though, didn't. But does that make it a bad game for me personally? No, I don't think it does. Because I can see myself having a lot of fun with this game. And I'm really kind of sad that they haven't come out with a new Lumines game. Maybe they have. I'm on the computer. Let's look this up. Google Lumines. Alright, Wikipedia. Sequels and follow-ups. In January... Oh, okay. It's PS Vita. That's why. That's why I never heard about it. Because I don't have a Vita. Lumines Electronic Symphony for the PS Vita in 2011. In January 2015, the rights of both Lumines and Meteos, that's another game we should cover at some point, Meteos, were acquired by Mobcast. The company announced the development of a new Lumines mobile game, with many of their... Mobile game? What? Really? Where's my phone? What did I do with my phone? Apparently there's a Lumines mobile game. Hold up. Oh, this is serious. I can see that being fun for on mobile. I can see that being awesome on mobile. Hold up. Where's my freaking phone? It was next to me the whole time. I feel stupid now. Hold up. Go to the Google Play Store now. Oh, snap. What are some reviews here? The game is fantastic. It brings back memories of the Sony PSP days. That being said, the controls need a lot of work. They are not precise at all and find myself making too many unwanted moves. If this is fixed, I will happily give it 5 stars. Dan Skopalj says, I almost died when I saw this come to Android at last. It's almost perfect. Unfortunately, touch controls just doesn't work well with this game. When I try to flick the square down, it often registers as a rotate. It's so damn annoying. I used to play this so fast on the PSP, just can't do it on this platform. Not on the Galaxy S7. At least anyways, I'll keep persevering though. Mark Paul says, Lumines faithfully ported to the Android, almost perfect. Except, I know it says, he meant to say perfect, but it's a misspell. Almost perfect, except for the touch controls. At the higher levels, having the game misread a rotate instead of a move is death. Also, the DLC is a bit much for a game I purchased for $2.99 each pack would be more reasonable. Cheesy peas. Looks like a little kid. Oh no. Oh, it's an old lady. Hey, you know what the first game had? Multiplayer. I want that battle mode in here. Would make this game solid. Like a poo. She doesn't say that. DLC purchased 1 star. DLC purchased for $7 but stays locked and wastes data. Oh man, this is sad to hear. Cause I honestly almost pooped my pants when I heard Lumines was on Android. An average of 3.8. It's a premium piece of software for $2.99 on the Google Play Store. Probably $2.99 on iOS as well. I'm not bothering to look. A knockoff copycat game called Tribute to Lumines by Zheng Wu has an even lower score of 2.7. Oh, that hurts me. That hurts me. You know what Mobcast needs to do? They need to get Lumines on the Switch. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I'm not caring to get anything real fancy. It could be a $5 or $10 game for all I care. But with just basic Lumines, bunch of skins, maybe extra skins as DLC. I could see that being a thing. And online multiplayer. That'd be solid. Because, the more I think about it, Lumines is a solid handheld game, but just doesn't have the depth to be a console. And since the Switch is a hybrid, it works well. Yeah, okay, good. I'm recording. For a second I was like, did I hit the record button? Anywho, so coming back to this game, I had a lot of fun with it. It was really good. And I'm going to have to play it again pretty soon. Maybe it's going to be on my laundry rotation of puzzle games I come back to for therapeutic purposes. That's funny and sad because it's true. Maybe I'll go into detail about that at some point. My personal feelings about games. Maybe that's something you want to hear about. What does it mean to me? If that intrigues you and you would like me to go into detail, leave a comment down below if you're watching this on YouTube, or tweet at me with hashtag Pongcast. Be like, yo, what do games mean to you, Pong? What do games mean to you, Sensei? Tell me! You can do all caps. I don't care. I'll still read it. And maybe I'll do a mini-pod about that. Would that be fun? I don't know. Maybe. I'll go, seriously go down memory lane and pull up 30 years of games with at least 15 different genres and subgenres, and then you'll realize, wow, Pong plays everything. He's only really good at puzzle games, maybe some platformers like Bubsy. Oh, that was the other reason why I'm so excited about freaking Bubsy. It's freaking Bubsy. I never thought in my life this would ever come. It needs to get on the Switch. It needs to get on the Switch. Oh, yeah, that's something I forgot to mention. Bubsy is set to release in the fall of 2017 for PS4 and PC. Man, I hope it comes out on the Switch. It would be perfect for it because it is 90s nostalgic gold. Or, no, not gold. It's Sonic and Mario are gold. Crash Bandicoot is gold. Bubsy is solid 90s retro nostalgic Teflon. It never stuck. That's just stupid. Oh, what a pot of full joke. That didn't work. Oh man, I'm so excited to hear over 100 cringy puns. That's one of the selling points, and that's either good or bad depending on who you are. Go check out the trailer on YouTube. Yes, the character model looks ugly as all hell in 3D, but I'm kind of okay with that because it's Bubsy, and I don't expect much. I just expect to have a little bit of fun. That's all I want. I want a solid 7 out of 10. If I'm lucky, 8 out of 10. It was one of the few cringy things I like. Don't take that away from me. So yes, back to Lumines. Does it hold up? Should it be Pong and forgotten? No, it shouldn't be Pong and forgotten. It should be remembered because it's a fun game. If you own a PSP, or dare I say, if you're into piracy, Go check out Lumines. It's really good. Maybe tweet at Mob Games, Mobcast, or whatever it was called, that owns the license now, to make Lumines on the Switch a thing. Make it a bargain game. Because we all know the Switch needs more games. It has like 50 games now, but people are constantly complaining it doesn't have enough games. It's like it's some kind of new console or something. It's acting like a new console. It doesn't have enough games. Yeah, I'm being cynical here. But point is, puzzle games are always welcome on a handheld. Lumines needs to come to it. Unless it has like some deal with Sony, then balls. If it's an exclusive for Sony, Lumines is dead because the PS Vita and any PS handheld won't beat out the Switch or DS. It's just, oops. So, what's my retrospective rating for this? I'm going to say Lumines gets a solid 8 out of 10. Yeah, I chose good games this week for this episode, so sue me. They're all going to be relatively good scores. Let's move on to another easy one. Kirby's Dreamland, originally for the Game Boy and available on Virtual Console on the DS. Now, I haven't played this game in years, just like Lumines. I think the last time I really sat down with Kirby's Dreamland was maybe like back in 2005. Man, it takes me forever to catch up with the times. But there were back in 2003, I was high school Pong, being like, oh gosh, I wanna find every single Game Boy game out there and play it. And lo and behold, I already had Dreamland. I was like, oh gosh, let's play this because I want to play my Game Boy again. All the kids got that new-fangled Game Boy Advance, and all the kids got that new-fangled DS with the 2 screens. I want my green, my green screen. Yes, I had a brick Game Boy at one point. I now have a Game Boy Advance, but I lost my brick in the wars of 2010. Things I'm not legally allowed to lie about. It's very sad. Very, very sad. Along with my Game Boy collection, which I had a pretty epic Game Boy collection. But point is, yeah, I haven't played Dreamland in years. So I was like, all right, well, I don't want to jump straight into New Game Plus. Let's play regular. So for convenience, I purposely got the Virtual Console version for my 3DS because it's only a few bucks there. So I was like, whatever. It's Kirby's Dreamland. I'll always have fun with it because I remember myself always having fun with it. And lo and behold, it still holds up really freaking well. No surprise there. And yes, the regular game is actually pretty easy. But I forgot how painful New Game Plus was. Wow, that floating eye and the storm cloud thing, demon horror show, can go suck my little Sensei eggs. Yes, I have Sensei eggs attached to my body, and it can go suck them, because that thing is freaking terrible. And the airship, too, there's just no way to dodge every single shot. And I love bullet hells, believe me, I love shoot-em-ups. The New Game Plus, not all of them. Wispy Woods is relatively easy as long as you get the pattern down. It's not hard. I can see it being hard for people that aren't good at platformers, but I like Kirby. I like platformers. The controls were a little floaty. I hate that. I hate it when people say the controls are a little floaty. Well, what about a Kirby game? Oh. Floaty controls aren't bad. It's how it's handled. Which brings me back to Bubsy. Which is probably why I kind of enjoyed Bubsy. But let's stop talking about Bubsy here. This ain't no Bubsy cast. The Bubsy cast will be saved for a mini pod, hopefully around October, for my Pongtoberfest horror show. Scariest games ever. Now, maybe you didn't play this with me this time around on the book club, but so what's the storyline, Sensei? Tell me a story of Kirby in his land of dreams. Well, sit tight, snuggle up, Don't let the lice get you, because they're terrible to get rid of. But Kirby is the star warrior of the planet called Popstar, and he likes eating things. He's a very simple-minded dude, but the greedy King DDD grabs the star rod, and that's not good. So Kirby fights him, and his henchmen fight back. That's basically the storyline. And what did I know? I wrote down notes for this somewhere. I just lost my notes for this game. But Kirby, at the end of the game, Kirby puffs up so big and rips King DDD's castle out of the ground and flies off into the sunset, causing mayhem and anarchy and destroying the government, and the pop star falls into ruin. No, that doesn't happen. But yeah, I don't know. Who cares about the storyline? It's Kirby. Nobody really cares. A thing happens. It needs to be fixed. Kirby goes in and fixes it. Now, okay, so like if you did play along with me on this one, you'll notice that Kirby can't get the power, can't suck up the powers of his enemies in this one. Because mind you, this was the first Kirby game. At least I think it was the first. Yeah, it was the first Kirby game. I want to say the first Kirby game where he can suck up an enemy and gain their powers was on Kirby's Adventure on the NES. And yeah, that not having that mechanic may seem like it's a hindrance to the game's like replayability and fun, but it really isn't, because the game itself is just fun. It's not Kirby games for me have never been like too difficult. At least the base game has never been too difficult. They've never been hard, but that was never the point. It was always about, finding little secrets, little secret rooms, secret passages, and you do have those in Dreamland, believe it or not. And fighting enemies, like cutesy enemies in a cutesy world, and it was nice to just sit down and kind of relax with that game. Controls, of course, are pretty tight, despite being floaty, but Kirby's a floaty guy, so it all works out. Does it hold up? Yeah. I thought it was a solid game, and it's just as good as I remember it. And it's almost like a fine wine. I almost have to say it's gotten better with age. Maybe, if I had picked this up like when I was a kid back in like the early 90s, I would have said something completely different. I would have been like, this is the best game ever. No, okay, so maybe it hasn't gotten better with age, but because there are better Kirby games out there. But it's still a solid title. It's very fun. I think it'd be easy for kids to pick up and play. I think if you're not good at platformers, you'd still have a good time with it. You'd probably still be able to beat the game quite easily. You can try your luck with New Game Plus. Ugh, I'm a glutton for punishment. We'll get to that with Story of Seasons. Story of Seasons was fun. I enjoyed it. But, so, honestly, what do I think of Kirby's Dream Land? It was good. I don't know. There's really not much to say. I feel like this is the weakest point of the podcast right here, because I just talked about Lumines, which is a pretty straightforward minimalist puzzler, and then Kirby's Dream Land, which is a pretty straightforward retro Game Boy title. But I think it still holds up really well. The controls are fun. The bosses weren't anything. They weren't anything crazy, but they still offered enough challenge to be like, hey, how do I work around this? Oh, okay, this is the best way of doing it. Let's do that. So, what's my retrospective score for Kirby's Dream Land on the Game Boy and Virtual Console? Well, I'd give it 4 out of 5 stars, so maybe about like an 8 out of 10. Yeah, it's an awesome game. It's not the best Kirby game in the world, but it's still pretty dang good. If you're a fan of platformers, if you're a fan of the Game Boy, it's an easy pickup because I don't believe it's rare in any degree. It should be very common. I don't know my retro market very well, but it should be pretty common. So if you want the physical version or, the Virtual Console version, it's easy to pick up. Go look for it if you haven't played it. It's definitely a classic. And finally, Story of Seasons, Trio of Towns on the 3DS. Oh, what can I say about this game? There's so much to say. So if you didn't play along with me on this one, but know the game Harvest Moon or Stardew Valley, it's it's basically that type of game. Here's the thing, Story of Seasons was made by Exceed, which used to be part of the group of companies that made the Harvest Moon games. And they were the publishers for a lot of the Harvest Moon games, and they were also the publishers for the Rune Factory titles, and they're an awesome publisher. So it was no surprise to me that Story of Seasons Trio of Towns was really good. It was really freaking good. There's a lot of depth. They've added the one thing that made me kind of giggle fart was just the amount, just the crazy stupid amount of stuff you can grow and on your farm. And they added like different types of soil, different types of farm plots you can create. Like you can have like patties, not a burger patty. I mean like a rice patty. So it's like a water filled area where like marshy things can grow, like rice or apparently wasabi. And at the moment, my wasabi is almost hitting that 5 gold star status of being like perfect wasabi, the best wasabi in the world. And luckily, wasabi in the game can grow all year round. So I'm like, yay, this is my cash crop. Well, not my cash crop, my tournament crop. I'm going to have the best wasabi in the world. And the turnover's pretty great too. It only took like 15 in-game days to harvest. So that's not bad. You harvest it with a sickle. So that was really cool. And the random things you'd find. Lavender, you'd find basil, you'd find mugwort, you can find hydrangeas. And the big gimmick of this game was that there's 3 different towns you can visit and unlock throughout the first year. And one town is it's called West Town, so surprise, surprise, it kind of has like a cowboy western feel to it. The second town you unlock is Lulucoco, which is like a Hawaiian town, and it's got a beach, and you can like set up like fish traps so you can catch fish in a trap other than like just sitting there and fishing the entire time, which is nice. You don't have to like waste 3 hours in game time for fishing or anything like that to get a decent pull. You can just buy a few traps and put them out, for a few days until they break. So that was cool. I like that. There's just so much stuff in the game that you can find and collect and forage and grow, and the amount of animals you can raise in your barns. You can have, of course, you can start out with your basic stuff like chickens and cows, but it starts going, you can start unlocking other things that come with the other towns. So you can start getting like silky chickens, you can get alpacas, you can get like shuffled, that's not right, another type of sheep, you can get Jersey cows, you can get, I think I already said that, you can get, oh man, I'm so tired, I can't think. It's like, you can get those, fuzzy bunnies, you can grow, you can take care of bunny rabbits and collect their wool, their hair and stuff to create wool. I was like, man, this game is tight. But maybe you're not into just the straight up farming sim part of it. Maybe you want to know, hey, well, how are the characters? How are the towns themselves? And I can say this: you have your main characters and you have your random NPCs. Yes, there's random NPCs and town walkers. So it's not just like, oh, this town literally only has a population of 10. It has a population of, I don't know, who knows. Some people don't live in town. They're just visiting because they live out in the countryside. That sort of thing. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing that made me laugh. There is so much thought and so much like depth put into these characters that it really made the characters feel kind of real, and it was nice. And nice to see that. It's such like solid writing in this game. The NPCs, man, the NPCs. So you have, of course, like a lot of Harvest Moon games, you have the Harvest Goddess, you have, and not all of them, you have the Witch. And in this one, because you have a third town, which I didn't actually even mention, Tsuyukuya, I think. I'm pronouncing that completely wrong. Shame on me, because I'm half Japanese. But it's a Japanese themed town, like kind of a late Meiji period type town with that kind of architecture. But with that, you have a character named Inari, which is the guardian of that town, who's like a fox spirit type thing. Kitsune spirit, if you know. But point is, you have them. Inari also happens to be the secret bachelor or bachelorette, because they're Their gender is androgynous, which is fine because they're a mortal being. It doesn't really matter. Anyways, with these towns, you have these random NPCs. You can shove them off and shove them to the side because you're like, whatever. They're just NPCs. It doesn't matter. They don't change up the game in any way. But I realized I caught on relatively fast, maybe within like that first month of in-game time, where I was like, oh, this person has a funny name. His name is Indy, and we're in the Hawaiian town. And apparently, Indy likes to travel to the local ruins and look for treasure. And he's an archaeologist. Do you get that reference? I hope you do. Indiana Jones, if you didn't. Some other funny ones was, I found this guy named Lucas in West Town who was like, I'm writing this story. Got this great villain. I'm thinking of having him dress all black. George Lucas. Another one was this NPC named Marilyn, who was like, I'm an actress that plays on the stage and I'm just visiting, blah, blah, blah. Marilyn Monroe. And then there's this other one. This was a little bit like, man, all them big words are like leaving me right now because I'm actually just running on a few hours of sleep for the past 48 hours. That's probably not healthy in any way, but it makes me giggly, kind of. This one NPC named Angie, who was like, I want to prove to my father, professor, that I'm a great treasure hunter too, and I'm exploring these ruins to unlock the secrets of them. Angie, aka Angelina Jolie, who played Lara Croft in the Tomb Raider movie. Yeah, that was kind of a long. It's kind of a nice little hop and skip of a lot, like thought train right there. Train. Let's drink some Rockstar energy drink to get my mind going. Oh yeah, that's good. That was fun. I was like, man, there's so many dumb secrets in this game. It just makes it a lot of fun. But here's the other question that you might be asking, because if you know these type of games, you're like, well, what'd you think of the Bachelors and Bachelorettes? Well, I did some research here, and I was like, man, all these bachelors kind of suck. Which they do, apparently. Like Wayne, who's play on John Wayne, is a bit of a playboy. And let's Google search this, because I found this funny thread on GameFAQs. How to break up with someone in Story of Seasons, Trio of Towns. Yeah, here's a thread that someone started. I think Wayne's cheating. Alright, so okay, so what do I think of the other characters? The doctor's kind of a D-bag, and he's always a D-bag. He's, you think, oh, he's the Cassandra character. He's hard on the outside, but really soft and nice on the inside. Nope, when you finally get to know him, he's still a D-bag. But this one was funny. So this thread, I think Wayne's cheating. I'm assuming this is a girl typing and playing the game, so I'm going to try to make it a slightly effeminate voice. I've been pretty suspicious for a while, but what happened the other day just confirmed my little idea. Made him 6 million richer by being married to me, gave him a kid, worked my butt off just to make him cafe mocha to give him every day. And you know what the guy does even after a year of being married to MC? He talks about how other women, heck, he even threw in Yuzuki, are so pretty, nice, cute. But when it comes to his own wife, all I hear are crickets chirping in the background. Gee, thanks. As well as I mentioned earlier, something happened the other day that makes me think he's seeing someone else. It was a Sunday, raining, and the kiddo had just gone to bed. Wayne went poof into the night right after dinner, searched for 20 minutes on his icon on the map, and finally gave up. And I thought it'd be nice to wait for him before heading off to bed myself. Hours went by, and it was flipping midnight when he came walking in like it was all fine and dandy. Dude, I know you like stargazing, but it's raining out there. What in the world were you doing until midnight that was so important? Yes. And then, cool kid, 71111. This is why I'm going with Ludus. Summer 86 replies, lol, no, I just made a post on another thread about how Ludus dumped a huge bucket of ice water on my character by talking incessantly about Aluka and even mentioning how cute she is. This is why after and during cut scenes and other dialogues where he blathers on, basically psychoanalyzing that insufferable woman, when all I want to do was run an errand and get back to my cows. Good goddess, this is such a turnoff. I could not get out of Lulacoco fast enough after that bit of dialogue. To make matters worse, my real-life husband was also playing... I didn't get this far in the thread. Who is also playing the game, plans on pursuing Aluka. Gah! I am not pleased about it because I looked a lot like Kumari when I was younger, and I was also a tomboy, though I did once own an outfit like Aluka's from my mother's island. But my husband is picking the snotty fuchsia-haired goddess. Man! Wouldn't it be crazy if Wayne was cheating on Kazuko's MC and Brad's wife? Brad did already have a jealous fit of his own birthday because his wife and Wayne were too flirtatious with each other. Poor Brad. He might need comforting. You go, girl. Lol, this game is great. I've got so much depth to it compared to other games I just came from. Skytree Village. Harvest Moon, I knew Skytree Village was crap. I called it. I can't come up with many backstories, blah blah. Blah blah blah. Yeah, so this goes on for quite a while. Man, this is a long thread. That's kind of funny, though. Oh, Ford. Let's see. Ford's really popular. I like him as a character, but I can't stand his portrait. Yeah, he's the good doctor. Who's kind of a D-bag. But at least he's honest, which apparently is kind of a hard trait to come by in these bachelors. But what do I think of the bachelorettes? Well, the bachelorette choices in the game are pretty good. They're not bad. Once you actually dive into their character, the character depth, I haven't really explored too much about Kasumi or Aluka, but the three that I chose to kind of explore to kind of get a feeling of the game was Komari, Lisette, and Suluka, Aluka's twin sister. Suluka is basically Chlorica from Rune Factory 4, the sleepy one. And then you have Lisette, which is kind of like your Harvest Moon standard, the flower girl. And then you have Komari, who's kind of like your Harvest Moon standard of the working girl. So yeah, they had the most kind of nice. I can't think complicated words right now. Nice backstories, nice personalities, things that I wouldn't mind seeing more in the game. Characters I'd like to just kind of explore in the game, just that kind of stuff. I was like, okay, those three are definitely the strongest three of the bunch. I don't know enough about Inari, though, because Inari's kind of complicated. Also, you can't have a kid with Inari, and Inari doesn't live with you in your house once you do get to that point of the game, because, they're like a deity guardian of Tsukuya, so, kind of stuck there. And do you really want an immortal being falling in love with you only to watch you die 50 to 70 years later? No, that's mean. That's mean. So, Apparently, though, I think in the DLC that's set to release later this year, you can have a kid with Inari. There are two other bachelorettes added with that DLC. You have they added the name Stephanie to the MC girl who runs the competitions, and you have Woofio, who's the judge for the animal competitions, which is absolutely hilarious. If you've run into Woofio, if you're playing this with me, he's basically a guy constantly dressed up as a dog, as a goofy-looking dog. And apparently, according to my wife Muka, who looked into the DLC, was like, the only time your character ever sees Woofio's face is when you get married to Woofio. He takes off his mask so you can, kiss during marriage. But it's like this flash of light, so you don't actually ever get to see his face as the player. I thought that was funny. I was like, man, I once the DLC releases, I might have to get that just to do a follow-up on this game. Because I might have to restart my game as a girl and just pursue Woofio, because that's hilarious. Now, maybe this is hitting kind of close to home a little bit, because I have work experience as a mascot. As a mascot, yes, I do have work experience in mascot costumes, and as a mascot and a sign spinner. I'm not going to say it was a very long time ago. But it wasn't recent, but I do have experience in that. So maybe it's hitting like my personal information, and that's why I find it intriguing and funny. But I might have to restart the game and pursue Wolfio when the DLC drops. But here's the thing. Here's why Story of Seasons took up so much time. Now, one thing, the big perks of the game I find is the ease of life that comes with watering your garden and mining and little things and nice little depth to taking care of your animals. I thought that was cool. Oh my gosh, side tangent story. Piles of poo. Piles of stinky poo. So it was like early in the game for like the first 2 months. At that point I have like 2 cows and a bunch of chickens. I'm like, I'm doing good. I'm getting along here. I'm doing pretty good. And well, for the longest time I didn't know what the pitchfork was for, because guess what? I didn't really play Story of Seasons, the first one, but I know a lot about it because my wife Muka played the first one and was like, well, the first one was really good. So we should get the Trio of Towns when it drops. We should get that. It should be good. You'll like it, Pong. You'll like it. She calls me Pong. No, she doesn't. We don't use her surnames for this. She's like, Fred. You'll like it, Fred. I was like, okay, Muka. I don't call her Muka, but I'm not sure if she wants me to use her real name. So I'm just going to call her Muka, as I always have, Professor Muka. So I didn't know what the pitchfork was for. I tried it on everything. I was like, okay, well, I'm growing fodder now, like grass, to feed my cows. Let's try it on that. I'm like, okay, hey, Ludus, build me some hay bales. He was like, okay, let's do that. Build me a silo. Okay, let's do that. Let's try to use the pitchfork on the silo. Okay, that doesn't work. It doesn't work on the hay bales either. What is this pitchfork for? Maybe about like a week into summer, maybe like halfway through summer, one of my chickens gets sick. And I'm thinking to myself, what have I done wrong? I haven't done anything wrong, have I? I've been feeding it. I've been letting it outside when it's sunny. I've been picking it up and playing with it, giving it love, feeding it every day. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. Why is my chickens getting sick? Until I realized, oh boy, they're not nesting. That's not nesting. That's not like nest buildup. That's not hay buildup. That's all poop. Because in this game, your animals poop. And you got to clean it up when it builds up like that. And what do? You use a pitchfork. So I literally had 2 months of poop piled up in giant piles. And it took me maybe 6 hours of in-game time to clean that up, which comes out to roughly 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Now, maybe it was like 3 hours in-game time. I don't know, but it literally took me 20 minutes of real time to clean that crap up, literal crap. Because I was like, oh, what am I doing to my chickens? Because they're all, like little idle animations as them like going bark, 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 walking around and pecking around and like sitting down and nesting down. I'm like, oh, don't sit down in that. That's gross. I'm like, oh, and there's just poo everywhere, and that was gross. I was like, oh, how are you guys not dead? Why didn't you guys get sick earlier? What's up, yo? So apparently I was doing a good job because they didn't get sick until like halfway through summer. But I thought that was funny. So what was my point? Oh, so yes, I like these ease of life things and like the depth that's added to everything. But one small detail I wasn't very happy with was the mining. Because I love the mining in Harvest Moon. In Story of Seasons Trio of Towns, if you didn't play it, but if played games like Stardew Valley or Harvest Moon, you'd know in those games, or even Rune Factory, that you go into a mine and mine the things. Like you take your hammer, clear up your inventory, and go in for a nice like half day or full day of like just straight up mining and get as much stuff as you can, In this, it's just little spots that like up against the wall, and you just hit the hammer up against the wall and rocks fall out magically. And I was like, oh, they took out the mining essentially. It's still technically mining, but it's not like I'm going into a mine and spelunking mining. So I was a little bit sad about that. But everything else made up for it because the characters are fun. Now, what was I going to say? The reason why this game took me forever to play and ate up every single minute of my free time was I was thinking to myself, well, I'm gonna talk about this game on the podcast, so I want to give you guys the full experience I can offer that, and with things that you may not do yourself. So I realized, which brings me back to why I talked about Wayne, and that funny little thread of Wayne cheating, or possibly cheating, was you can dump characters and break up with them, because the way the Bachelor and Love event system happens is, unlike past Harvest Moon games, you can't just like woo every single person and make them fall in love with you, only to break everyone's heart except for one person and marry that one person. In this game, you max out their friendship level and then offer them a pendant to say, hey, let's go steady, baby. Let's go steady. You want to be my boyfriend? You want to be my girlfriend if you're playing as a boy? You know, that sort of thing. Lay down the charm. And then it goes into this nice little, small little fun cut scene, kind of heartfelt, and be like, yeah, let's talk alone in a quiet spot where no one will bother us. It's like, oh, you know, just kind of cutesy stuff like, oh, I'm so nervous, blah, blah. I'm blushing beet red. I didn't know you had feelings for me because I had feelings for you. That sort of thing. Cute stuff. But, so the person I chose, and I already explained who my three top choices are, for anything important, of all important life decisions, I went with my gut and rolled a dice, and I rolled out Komari, which wasn't a bad choice, because Komari might have to be the best option for me personally, I think. Just knowing the backstories of the other characters, I didn't really metagame this too heavily, but it was like, okay, so Komari, and then I get her up to like a high pink heart level, and I'm realizing to myself, well, I still want to give you guys the full experience. I need to break up with Komari. Now, here's the thing. Breaking up with somebody is hard and takes a long time. And I wasn't doing the trick right. Because remember that pendant? Yes, that pendant. You can buy another one and show it off to everybody. And an easy way to get them to break up with you is show it off to everybody and be like, hey, look what I got. And people are like, oh, wow, that's a pendant. It's so pretty. Like the little kids are like, oh, that's so pretty. Or little girl characters like, oh, I can't wait for the boy of my dreams, as someone special to give me the pendant. And we can live happily ever after. Or another person's like, yeah, you probably shouldn't be flashing that around because you don't want to cause any rumors and give anybody the wrong impression. Or another person's like, hey, you probably shouldn't be showing everybody that because that's something special and you don't want to lose it. You know, that sort of thing. Anyways, you could do that. And then the person you're going out with is like, hey, look, I heard you were doing this, blah, 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 and they get all angry at you and they're like, okay, well, maybe it was just a misunderstanding. I'm sorry. But because of that, their heart level drops because it's a little tiff. And I didn't get this trick right because I was like, I'm just showing it to everybody and I'm avoiding Komari at this point because I'm like, this is sad. But and because of the writing being so relatively solid for the game it is, I started feeling bad. I was like, oh man, but I know my listeners want me to do this, but this is making me feel bad inside. So do you see what you're making me do? I'm talking to you, the listener. Do you see what you're making me do? You're turning me into a terrible person. That's my whole point of this podcast. Thank you. No. You're all terrible people. No, I'm kidding. But I figured, okay, well, y'all want me to go into an in-depth game because I did the poll and Rune Factory won that one for next podcast. I was like, okay, well, if they want me to do like in-depth, game talks about this, I should give you the deepest thing. So I was finally able to bring down Komari's heart level back down to a light blue, all the way from pink, which is like maybe like 60,000 FP and AP points, which is a lot of points. That took, because I didn't get the trick right off the bat, it took me like a month and a half or almost 2 months of in-game time to just bring her down to that, and then I unlocked the breakup sequence, and that was kind of sad. It was terrible. I was like, oh man, this is making me feel bad. I don't usually get all sappy with video games, but this is kind of making me feel bad. This is like, because all the characters are so charming and so cute. Even the jerk D-bag ones are kind of charming. It's like, oh well, this is like a little kids anime, It's like this is fun, this is cute. But when they're like coming across these heavier issues, as some of these games tend to cover, like Ellie's grandmother dying in Harvest Moon, or alcoholism in Friends of Mineral Town. Yes, those kind of topics do arise in Harvest Moon because it's real life simulation, folks. This ain't Call of Duty, where you can jump off a building and survive. This is real life. This is the real life, bros. So I was just like, oh man, this sucks. I feel bad now. And so my character Ike, who she started calling the pet name. You choose whatever pet name you want. I chose Harvey because I don't know, that was the first thing that came to my mind because I was like, well, oh gosh, I like that movie Harvey. Yes. Now y'all know where my insanity lies. But yeah, so Kamari's like, Harvey, I can't deal with this. Everybody else is calling me Ike. They're like, Harvey, I can't deal with this, blah, blah, blah. I think this is something that I've been feeling has been wrong for a long time. And it's probably for the best. Can we still be friends? Because I think it would break my heart to not be friends with you anymore. And my character, as with every single explanation in the game, he just throws out his hands like doom ba-doom and does a nod. Everything. Your character's kind of a dick because every time someone asks him a question, they're like, okay, yeah, I'll help you. That's always the same animation. But you're like, yeah, that'd be okay. And they're like, oh, okay, well that's good. I hope this doesn't hurt things. Stop by and talk to me sometime. And she walks away, and your character is left alone on your farm, and their head drops. Fade scene. I was like, oh, that's sad. Poor little anime boy got his heart broken. I was like, maybe I should have stopped giving her weeds as presents. And flirting with every single character in the game. I had it coming, yes. But now, here's the problem. That took me forever. I couldn't get to marriage. I ran out of time. I was like, okay, well, if I want to get back with Kamari, I have to wait another in-game month because the flower closes once you break up with them. And you can't go back to dating them again until that flower opens again. And that flower won't open until after a month when all the bad feelings have floated over because time heals everything, essentially. I guess that's the idea. You're not going to rebound automatically. So I was like, okay, dang, I'm going to have to play another in-game month if I want to marry Komari in-game now. So I'm just like, okay, that's going to take me forever. But yeah, since it took me forever to break up with Kamari in-game, I was just like, ugh. I didn't get to see the marriage sequence. So, and I actually I only have an alpaca, and I only have a bunny for wool, and their wool isn't good enough to make the king-size bed, so I can't have a kid just yet. There's a long ways to go in this game, and, that's a good thing. I'm going to be coming back to this game. Who am I going to choose? Well, I'm probably going to have to choose Lisette or Saluka at this point. I'll probably roll the dice unless I want to spend another year pursuing Komari, but now that I've unlocked every single heart event and love event, it's going to be even harder to get her to that point of the red flower. So I'm just like, oh man, what do I do? Here, actually, let's decide what I'm going to do, and I'll give you a rundown of how it goes next podcast or the podcast after that. With all of important life decisions, let's roll the dice. It has been decided. I'm going to restart. No, I'm not going to restart the game. I probably will go with Lisette, unless I decide against it. But we'll see. Anywho, so that's that. I don't know. What else happened in the game that was pretty cool? There's a lot of festivals. There's a lot of competitions, which is always nice. It keeps things interesting, keeps giving you goals to work towards, which is nice. Overall, the game is relatively big. It's huge for the type of game that it is. There's a lot of depth and a lot of things to grow. You can get a disgustingly large house. You can get all sorts of different kind of crops. You can build up an orchard. You can get, during the spring, you can have maple trees and like a maple tree orchard and like expand your farm and get maple syrup. I've unlocked beehives, even though I haven't actually built one yet. I have a fish hatchery now where I'm farming these thing called horned turbans, which are like a giant clam snail thing. I don't really know. Let's look that up. I'm actually curious what a horned turban is. Okay, yeah. It's a type of snail. Like a sea snail. A marine gastropod mollusk in the family Turbinidae. I just typed in horned turban with Google, and the first thing that comes up is Turbo cornutus. Yeah, that's basically how it looks like in the game. So yeah, it's a type of sea snail that you can eat. That's kind of cool. I'm sure if I've ever eaten sea snail. I've had escargot. I love escargot, but now I'm curious. The horned turban is a species of sea snail that lives off the coasts of Japan. That makes sense. All right. Anywho, oh man, I'm just so rambly today. Oh boy, this podcast is getting long. Man, I should really stop recording when I'm like horribly sleep deprived, because my mind keeps going off the rails. Drink the Rockstar. Live the dream. Drink the Rockstar. Live the dream. Sensei Pong. There's a quote. When I finally come out with my Sensei Pong trading cards, that's something I should do. I should create a Sensei Pong trading card game. See if that gets kickstarted. Kickstarted. Lobsters. I don't think anybody's going to get that joke. That audience of my YouTube channel, I don't think are listening to the podcast. So, unfortunately, y'all won't get that joke. Go watch Asagao Academy, my Let's Play. Lobsters. Freaking lobsters. It's not even that funny anymore. Oh boy. Okay, whatever. So how does this game compare to other farming sim, life sim games? I think it's stellar. I think it's awesome. I always kind of default to one of my favorite Harvest Moons of all time, which was Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town on the Game Boy Advance, and or Rune Factory 4 on the 3DS. No, I've never played Stardew Valley. It's been sitting on my computer for a long time, but I just haven't gotten the time to sit down with it. And yes, it will be on the playlist for this podcast at some point, because I want to do a head-to-head battle between, Harvest Moon and what have you. I don't know. Something new, something old, and the wild card. But I haven't decided when that's going to happen. Probably with Pongtoberfest, because it's a harvest game. A farming game. That makes sense, right? Yeah? I don't know. So I can't really compare it to Stardew Valley. I can only really compare it to Rune Factory and Harvest Moon, and that one Harvest Moon, the Lost Valley, which goes down on my list as the worst Harvest Moon game of all time, because Natsume is a publisher and can't develop worth crap. I'm sorry, Natsume. I love you guys. Abadox forever. Abadox. Look it up. It's a weird shmup from the NES era. I don't know. It ranks high. I'm not sure if I'd rank it as high as the Rune Factory games or that one game that was announced by Squeenix. Can't remember the name of it. It's like RE something. But you should look that up if you're into these sorts of games, because it's got that Rune Factory vibe of a farming sim game with personal interactions and social simulator, but with dungeons and monsters and things you fight and you catch monsters maybe. So basically it's exactly like Rune Factory, possibly, but I'm interested in that game. It looks good. So, but social interaction-wise, I thought it was really good. So, is it worth a look if you didn't play it but are curious about it? Most definitely. One problem that you might have is time management, because you have 3 towns, and if you're trying to do everything all within one day, you're just going to be running non-stop. But that seems to be the case with a lot of these kind of games, because you find like so many different side stories that you can try to like figure out or pursue and try to unlock, and there's just too much, not enough time in one day. That's a thing with these type of games. It's kind of a time management game at the same time. So maybe that's one thing that you may not like, but overall, it's a very solid game, and I love it. I've been loving it. It's a fun game. I'm probably going to keep playing it for a while. And I'll give you the rundown on how the rest of the game goes when I get to it. In the meantime, what would I rate it? All my scores this episode have been relatively high, and this is like none other, so I'd probably have to say a 8.5 out of 10. Maybe, no, I'd give it a 9. I'm going to give this game a 9. I really liked it. It was really, really good. It's not perfect, because some of those bachelors seem like, man, they suck. But maybe with DLC and the extra storylines and extra stuff you can unlock and play with and explore would be cool. But as it stands, it's a 9. Maybe with a DLC, it would jump up to a 9.5. I don't know. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was very fun. I could probably talk about this game for another like 30 minutes if I really want to, maybe an hour. But I'm not going to, because you should have played the game yourself. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. This is a book club, guys. I hope you played the games I put on the list. And I hope you enjoyed them, because I enjoyed all the games on the list this time. And that's not always the case. That's not always going to be the case. But this time around, I figured I'd choose games that I was 100% sure are good, or I know are good. Or I remembered that were good. Because I forgot to mention it, this is Handheld Gaming Month. Add some effects. No, hold on, let's redo that. It's Handheld Gaming Month. Month. So, they were all games I liked. I was like, or remember that I liked. I was like, okay, let's choose those. Let's start this book club with some good games. And if you're curious, what's the next podcast gonna be? It's probably gonna come out at the end of this month. Hey, I'm checking this in and throwing out the original ending because I got very rambly. So if my demeanor seems a little bit different, it's because I'm actually awake this time. Now, what was I going to say? Thank you for listening to the podcast, and God bless you for standing through that long, rambly mess. But anywho, as I said before this podcast, stay tuned for a possible Reddit thread that might be popping up at some point, where you can discuss these games with other listeners and myself, and I can possibly read those discussions and questions that you throw at me. And I feel like that would be a good thing overall for this podcast, because it gives a better sense of community, and it actually acts more like a book club than just me rambling into the mic. So yeah, follow me on YouTube at youtube.com/Mr. Sensei Pong. Follow me on Twitter at Sensei_Pong. Maybe Facebook at facebook.com/Sensei Pong. Google Plus if you really want to. I don't care about Google Plus. I think I maybe go on my Google Plus maybe like once to 2 months a year just to see if anything was going on, but usually nothing happens there. And just so I don't forget, next episode we'll be covering Kamiko on the Nintendo Switch, Shining Force, a sort of Hajya on Game Gear and Virtual Console, Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy and Virtual Console, not the NES version, but feel free to play that if you really wanna, because it's, personally, from what I remember, it's a better game than the Game Boy version. But either way, if I remember right, the Game Boy version is pretty solid for what it is. And Rune Factory on the DS. Again, that's Kamiko on the Switch, Shining Force, a sort of Hajya on Game Gear, Mega Man 2 for Game Boy, and Rune Factory on the DS. And I think that's about it. Yeah, thank you for listening. Till next time, Sensei Pong signing out.